Hello, Perry Posse. So today I have a special treat. I have Amy Waterman. She's the author of a book called Why Is He Mean to Me? She is a relationship expert. Amy, please introduce yourself.
Hello, Tara. My name's Amy, as Tara just introduced me, and I am a love educator who's been doing this work for 20 years. But when I started out my work, I did just call myself a dating relationship expert, and I used to give the same advice as everybody else. And something happened to me about 10 years ago. I realized that I was tired of teaching women to get and keep a man because I realized who wants men? Like a man is just a man. What do we actually want? What we want is love. And love is so much more important to us than a man because love can mean our girlfriends, love can mean our pets, love can mean our children. And so, this yearning that I had thought my audience had that I was serving by giving dating and relation advice, I realized their yearning is actually not for the guy. It's actually to feel loved and accepted and wanted and fulfilled. And so that's when I changed my title to Love Educator. And that's why I gave myself permission to write this book, because one of the core principles that I learned when I started my career as a dating and relationship expert is that you never tell other women they can't have what they want. I was told this by my boss. If a woman wants this guy, then your job is to help her get that guy, not to judge her, not to tell her that guy sounds like a bit of a jerk. You're not allowed as a coach. You can only tell her to get what she wants. And you have to tell her, this is very important, that it's easy and simple to have whatever man she wants. So that's why today, when you look at all of the dating advice on the internet, easy, simple tricks to make him obsessed with you, passionate for you, can't get enough of you. And they're all tricks. So what do you get? You get the guy, but you don't get love. And this is once I realized this and I put two and two together, I realized if I want to get women love, I have to tell them that sometimes the guy they're with is not the guy who can love them. And that goes against all my training and it's incredibly painful. But I know you, Tara, you're allowed to say that as a counselor, that maybe this relationship is not something I can help you with. But I wasn't allowed to do it. So that is one of the inspirations behind the book. I think a lot of women are in relationships where love is not on offer and will never be on offer. And I wanted to talk about it because I didn't think enough people were.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that and how does this relate to perimenopause, your wondering audience, right? Like what? And I think the thing is that when estrogen is just like flowing and we're all feeling warm and fuzzy most of the month, we tend to tell ourselves that the love is there and we make enough love in the relationship for both of us and stuff because thinking about how we're socialized and everything, that's kind of what we're told to do, like make it work. Women are the gatekeepers of the emotional relationship and all of that kind of stuff, right? So we make the love happen. And then during perimenopause, I think what happens a lot is, and women start to talk about how they're so annoyed with their husbands doing this and that and whatever, is we get a little more irritable and we are starting to see the things that aren't there. And we're more dissatisfied with the relationship because we don't have that steady estrogen saying everything's okay. We can ignore this thing or that thing. And I think a lot of times uh, it's us it's us realizing things that we can work through and are not really a big problem, but I mean, they are a problem, and I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's concerns, but there are a lot of things that we can work through. But I think something that you've told me about that you address in this book is also recognizing when you're recognizing something that's really unhealthy and how to figure that out too. What is just things that we need to work on together and there is love there versus what is it where what does it look like when the love really isn't there and it's toxic, to use a buzzword?
Yeah. So it's really important to understand that your 40s are hard.
Yes.
Perimenopause hits. And not only that, but there is a theory called the U curve of happiness that has been very well documented as a global pattern where you start out life pretty happy, kids are quite happy. And then your happiness about your late 20s goes, and you know the age it hits the bottom? 47.
Oh,
And
well,
then it
heck,
goes,
I'm 46. I'm almost there. I'm almost at rock bottom. That's
I will just
great.
say there seems to be a lag at the bottom.
Oh shit.
But
Well,
anyway, don't worry, your late 50s, 60s, you're going back up again. So this
oh,
U curve
I have
of
to wait a
happiness
decade.
is gonna be a while. But when you think about it, it makes so much sense because your 40s are when all the stuff hits the fan. You may
Yeah.
have teenagers going through hormonal craziness at the same time you're going through hormonal craziness. Your parents are getting older. They might be struggling
Hmm.
with health. They might not be able to look after themselves. You're maybe experiencing the first health issues, serious health issues you've had during your life. And let's just be honest, work is not suddenly magically easy because you hit 40, because now suddenly there's a lot of young people coming up wanting to take your job. So, what we know about relationships, one of the most fundamental things about relationships is when there's stress, when there's pressure, when the money is tight, people fight. And this is when
Yeah.
so many marriages break apart because no matter how strong that couple was when they hit those mid 40s, they're just getting hit with so much so fast that it's hard to stay a team. And so I want to say that your hormones are part of it, but also part of it's your life. Life is
That
hard.
absolutely makes sense.
Life
Yes.
is really hard. But so if you reach that and you're fighting more and things are hard and you're thinking, is this worth it? If you look at your relationship and say, you know what, this guy tries to be fair, he tries to make decisions jointly, he tries to be a good partner to me, even if he messes up a lot of the time. He looks to our future and he sees both of us there together in our future. And as much as he annoys me, and as much as he is not easy to work with, and as much as I wish he would just put in more work around the house and schedule things, he's a good man. If you can say that, I wouldn't give up at all on your relationship. I would go to see Terah and get some counseling. And
Thank you.
yeah, I would work hard on that. But
Yeah.
sometimes what happens is that he annoys you. The stuff is hitting the fan so fast that you are overwhelmed. You need support. You are drowning. And he's sitting on the sofa with a beer. And you think life would be easier if I was single. That's when we probably want to talk.
Okay.
So there's
What do
two
we talk
reasons.
about?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the first thing we're going to talk about before we jump to any conclusions, right? Because I am not here to say your guy's a bad guy. That is not what this is about. This is about things aren't working and it's affecting your health and it's affecting your sleep. And when you look 20 years in the future, you think, I'm going to be worn down to nothing if things don't change. So we're going to have a talk. And what we're going to talk about is your relationship contract. So when we get into a relationship, we both sign an invisible contract. And we don't even know we signed it. And we have two different completely contracts, but we don't know that yet. And on that contract, it says, this is what a good boyfriend slash husband does. This is what a good girlfriend slash wife does. This is what she owes him. This is what he owes her. This is what his responsibilities are. This is what her responsibilities are. And we have all that contract in our head, but we don't realize it. And what's in that contract are just our invisible assumptions. So we've never gone out and itemized what's exactly in our contract. And here's the whole problem. We think we signed the same contract. But
Oh, yeah.
actually,
That's so true.
yeah, he signed a different one. You signed a different one. And maybe in the beginning, you were both accommodating enough. You didn't really realize it. But now, perimenopause has given you a chance to say, hey, what's going on here? And maybe what's going on is that number one, you're seeing that your contracts are actually incompatible. Or number two, the contract you signed back then no longer works for you. And your guy deserves the chance to talk with through this with you. Not saying that he will, but that's your next job. This isn't working. Our agreements aren't working. Or just what are our agreements in the first place? Could we sit down and have a conversation about what do you think a good wife should always do? What do you think a good wife should never do? What do you think a husband does for his wife? Those questions, I mean, I don't care what stage you're at in a relationship, those questions are really, really powerful. Yeah.
They are. And I think, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about what a lot of women are saying around this time, which is I can't carry this burden that I've been carrying this whole time when I had more bandwidth. So when I had more bandwidth, I was willing to do a lot more emotional work around our connection and the emotional health of our relationship. I was willing to literally put more hours in to things done around the house or childcare or task oriented stuff, right? I was just willing to do a lot more tasks. And it's not even willingness, it's I'm realizing I'm unable. I've hit my wall and I'm unable. And it seems like this is, and what I hear a lot is it seems like that throws, again, thinking of this invisible contract idea, that throws the whole dynamic for a loop because then the partner is like, but you were doing all these things before, and I don't know how to do these things, especially carrying the emotional bandwidth of the relationship. I'm not been taught how to do that. I don't have the skills. And she was just picking it up. She was just picking up that energy, that labor without even thinking about it because it's what we're told like a good wife does anyway. Right. And she's just like, I'm thinking of, I'm gonna the plug the Do Not Care Club. But if anyone's heard her, she's like, we're giving the world notice that we do not care. And she talks about all of these things that women do that we just don't care to do anymore. And that does really shift the dynamic. And it can feel like your partner doesn't care or isn't willing to pick up the slack.
Yeah. That is, I love that Do Not Care Club. I think we should definitely put a link to that one that you sent me because it is absolutely so good. So good. But here's the thing. I want to believe that your guy is not a bad guy. So let's give him some credit here. Let's say that he has had a good deal for a long time. And as we know, nobody who's had a good deal wants their deal to get renegotiated so that they get paid less and have to work more. He is human to not want your relationship contract to change. He is human to resist. He's human to argue with you. But at the same time, you live in reality. And reality says, I can't do it all anymore. We have to fix this. We have to come up with some different ideas. So your husband or partner is not a bad guy if he fights you on this. He's not a bad guy if he resists. He's not a bad guy if he doesn't believe you that you're doing all this stuff. Because most of our men, what we do in the relationship is invisible. They don't actually see it. And there's a lot of good books on the emotional labor women put into relationships and how you can have conversations around emotional labor. So, but that's not our conversation here today because what Terah, you had asked me in the beginning is when does it cross a line?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it crosses a line when you start to see what I call, probably silly, EAP. So what's EAP?
Eep. Okay.
EAP. EAP is EP, and it is a combination of entitlement and punishment. So
Ooh.
it is
Mm-hmm.
crossed a line when your man believes not that you have a relationship contract that is negotiable, but in fact, his relationship contract is the only contract. You don't get to have your own. And everything he's entitled to from you does not change. If you want to be with him, if you want to be his wife, if you want to be his girlfriend, this is how it goes. It is his contract. He is entitled to all of these services. And if you don't fill those services for him, get another woman. You are not good enough. You are lazy. You are crazy. You are irrational. How does he put up with you? He works so hard every day. He comes home and you haven't done anything because he is entitled to all of that. and you have no input into the contract. Entitlement is dangerous. And these boys learn entitlement at a very young age. But that would be one thing, right? To have a husband who feels entitled to all these services from you. Because let's be honest, that's most traditional relationships. That's most
Hmm.
authoritarian relationships. So maybe it's okay that he feels entitled. But then we layer one more thing on top that takes it into harmful, and that is punishment. So not only is he entitled to all of these services from you, but he has the right and, in fact, duty as a man to punish you if you do not hold up your end of the deal. He can punish you in lots of ways. He can deny you things you want. He can make an arbitrary decision for the family that you disagree with and refuse to listen to. He can tell you you're crazy, irrational, you're abusive, you're using him, all those lovely things men tell us. He can punish you by isolating you from your family, refusing to let you see your family and friends. Um, and when he hurts you, you might think, this is not my husband. This is not who he is. It's like he's turned into this person that doesn't even look like him. His face is all red and he's raging and he's hard. Where's the empathy? Where's that loving guy I cuddle with at night? He's not here. And so you might think, well, obviously, we just have to make sure he stays that good, loving guy. And this side of him that punishes me, that's not real. But it is
Hmm.
real. And that's
Yeah.
what my book tries to help women see. This is not a man with a temper. This is not a man who has a dark alter ego. This is a man who has been taught that he is entitled to life being a certain way, and that if he does not get what he's entitled to, someone has to pay. And sadly, in a marriage, it's the kids and the wife that pays. And that's when we have problems.
So this is the kind of relationship where somebody would say, if you would just stop doing this, then I wouldn't have to do this to you. So then you might think and feel, well, if I like kind of like you said, if I just keep being the good wife and just sacrifice all of my needs to make sure that I stay in line here, then I'll be happy and he'll be loving and he'll turn into that cuddle monster that was in my bed versus this scary giant who's screaming and spitting and everything at me. And it's really that's me. That's my behavior. If I just change my behavior, then my marriage will be okay. Okay, tell me the faultiness in this thinking.
So I love women so much. I think we're wonderful. And one of the wonderful things we do, in fact, it's wonderful when you're working with a woman like this, is we take responsibility for everything. No
Hmm.
matter what happens, somebody's mood is down, somebody forgot something, there's a crisis. We'll take responsibility, we'll go fix it, we'll go make it better. Because at the end of the day, this is our family. The minute that we fell in love and formed a union with this partner, we are responsible for everything that happens in that relationship, not him, because we're the woman. And this is what women do. And like I said, it's lovely to work with a woman like that. It's lovely to be friends with a woman like that because no matter what happens, she is there. But what we don't realize is the way it destroys us. So, one of the hard things that happened, so I wrote this book from over a decade of research, but also from previous experience. And I don't think there's any woman out there who's never been with a partner who's crossed a line. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anyone, and I have been with multiple. So one of the things that ended up keeping me in difficult relationships longer than it should have is I was very much into self-help. I mean, obviously, I'm a self-help writer. That's just what I do. I read it all the time. And one of the biggest tenets in self-help is it is spiritually responsible to take 100% responsibility for what shows up in your life. Good, bad, you attracted it to yourself because of your thinking. So, guess what that made me think? It made me think that This relationship that is not working out is my creation. I actually attracted it. I created it with my thoughts. And therefore, if I just change how I think, I can fix it. So the saddest thing is to read my diaries and to see the amount of effort I put in censoring my thoughts and giving myself pep talks, telling myself I'm not grateful enough, doing gratitude lists of
Mm.
everything that was wonderful in my relationship, telling myself, I am so lucky. You would not believe, Terah, how many times in those diaries I say, I am so lucky. I love my family so much. They are the best family in the world. I could not be more grateful because I believed through all of my training and years of experience in self help that if I just change my thoughts, I will attract abundance and love. All I have to do is change how I'm thinking.
Mm.
And the cruel, cruel truth is that our thoughts cannot change reality. And the reality is the way he's treating you shows who he is, and that is the truth. And no amount of
Yeah.
positive thinking can change it. So I
Yeah.
learned to my horror, and I will say horror, because I believed in everything I had studied in self help, hook, line, and sinker. This is what I did for a living. It was like questioning my religion.
Oh yeah, it just completely knocks your foundation out from under you.
What it does is it shows you you can't change it.
Hmm.
This is the horrible rock bottom that you hit. That no matter, I could do all the stuff that the relationship experts say. I could be grateful to him. I could do all the loving things. I can take care of all my emotional needs myself, and he's still going to hurt me. It's
Because you can't
terrible,
change his
Tara.
behavior. Your behavior cannot change his behavior.
It's terrible. Because then, here's the thing, you have no hope anymore. Because all your hope was that by changing yourself, you would change him and you would have that relationship you knew you were supposed to have. And suddenly you're facing the truth that no matter what I do, it changes nothing, which means nothing will ever change. And what do I do now? And that's a
Yeah.
horrible place to be.
Yeah, that's a terrible realization. And it does feel hopeless.
It does. And what I hope women do, if they are in that place, is they start talking to people. And maybe if they're not brave enough to talk to somebody right now, they start writing down what they're thinking and feeling. Because one of the problems that we see in kind of the superficial pop culture advice is leave him, just leave him, done, done, right?
Oh yeah, totally easy. No big deal.
Does not work. Does not work like that. Because if he actually is as bad as he might be, he will punish you for even thinking about leaving him. And you know how he punishes you. You know you will pay. If there's any assets held in common, he will make sure you get nothing. If you have kids in common, he will try to use the courts to take those kids away from you. You know, other people don't know. You know. So, what I recommend is not going there right now, but first of all, write down and when we talk about writing things down, I want to be clear that if he is going to punish you, if he finds out, that you need to make sure you're writing things down where he can never find them. So you could write it down in a journal and hide it under your bed, or you could get an app, a journal app on your phone that's password protected, and then make sure to rename it so it looks like some totally different app. So you need to make sure if you do start writing this down, you will be in danger if he finds it. So make sure he doesn't. When you have your fights, when he does those horrible things to you, just write it down. Write it down factually, write down the date and time, write it down and keep writing it down. Because one of the things that keeps us in those relationships is not only the belief that we're responsible and we can fix it, but it's denial. This isn't supposed to be happening. It can't be as bad as I think it is. This is just normal, isn't it? Well, when you write it down, you start to see things a little differently.
Yeah. And you can start to see patterns, and patterns tell the truth.
Yeah. And you can't pretend it didn't happen then. Because I will just
Hmm.
say that one of the ways we stay sane in this world is we forget the things that hurt so much. And there's nothing wrong with that because there's no point in going around in the world carrying those painful memories. But unfortunately, sometimes it can stop you from seeing what happened because you forget things as soon as they happened. Um, so if you can do that, that's a good way to start. But even better is to start telling some trusted people about some of the things that are going on. And when I say trusted people, that's really important because telling a mutual friend, telling his sister, telling somebody who has no experience with abuse and thinks that you should just be more accommodating. You made your bed, now lie in it. Well, that's just what marriage is about, can really harm you. People you thought were your friend but know him, if you tell them what's going on, they might feel obligated to go to him and say, you know what your partner's saying about you? That's dangerous and they don't realize it. And that's one of the worst things about women who've had no experience with abuse, bless their hearts. They don't understand the danger they put you in when they go to your partner and say, hey, did you know your wife is X, Y, and Z? They don't understand. They have no idea. But you will pay for that. And I don't want you to pay for anything. So when you
Yeah.
pick that trusted friend, and unfortunately, not all therapists and counselors are can trusted people in this. There are a lot of therapists and counselors who are not trauma informed and may say things like, well, do you yell back at him? Well, then it's mutual abuse. Well, have you tried to give him more sex? Those aren't trusted people you can talk to. If you're looking for a therapist, make sure they're trauma informed and have experience with abuse because anyone else could hurt you even more. But anyway, once you find that person, it's so much work. But once you find that person, try to say out loud what's happening. And when you say it out loud, it actually doesn't matter what they say back to you. You will hear your own words. And when you hear those words come out of your mouth, that is actually what wakes you up. It's not what other people told you your relationship is, it's hearing those words come out of your mouth. You are the one who's going to heal yourself. You are the one who's going to wake yourself up. No one else can do this for you. But to do that, you've got to start telling your story. And it's hard.
Yeah. And I think something that's also really hard about the cycle of abuse and being in an abusive relationship, and this is what I saw from my own experience of being in an abusive relationship when I was going into graduate school and while I was in graduate school for counseling psychology, is that you can think that your relationship is so unique and you can put up with all of these things because there's this other beautiful side, because the cycle of abuse can be very addictive where it's so terrible, but then once you have that event of him blowing up or doing whatever, um, then the makeup period, and it's so tender and it's so wonderful and intense that it's kind of, there's a dopamine endorphin hit, and it's kind of like when you're scrolling and you finally find something cool. But it really is addicting, that cycle. And what was healing for me is I actually in graduate school had the opportunity to work with people who were court ordered to do group therapy. It was called Violence Intervention Prevention Program. And I worked with the guys who were court ordered because the police had been called to their homes for domestic disturbance and that kind of thing. And I saw that all of these guys were the same on some level as my boyfriend at the time, and he wasn't unique. They all followed the same pattern of abuse, which is what you're talking about, is the entitlement and the punishment. They all followed that pattern, and everybody had a sob story as to why they were that way. And I'm not at all laughing at anyone's pain because a lot of them had trauma, and that's really awful and sad that those things happened to them. But the trauma doesn't excuse the behavior, and that's what I had to learn is women, we are so understanding. And we're like, oh, I can imagine you as a little boy and your dad hit you or whatever it was that happened to him, where he learned this behavior. And I feel for that. And I feel like with my love, I can heal you. And what I found from that is that, and I don't mean to make this really black and white, but I think this is helpful, is there is no bad boy with a good heart. It's just a bad boy. And we see the bad boy with the good heart theme in media all the time. I mean, one of my favorite movies growing up was, you're going to laugh, Dirty Dancing. Dirty
It's our
Dancing,
age, Tara. I
right?
think it's just our age.
I know. But that's a classic bad boy with a good heart. I just rewatched it recently and I was like, I still love Johnny, I still, well, Patrick's anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But there's a lot of movies like that. Good Will Hunting, that's a great example. I would tell my daughter to steer clear of that guy, like, so there is a formula of being able to see that these are experiences someone had, and it does lead people to behave in a certain way and have really their own deep trauma that keeps them in this loop that then brings you into this loop. And you might have your own stuff that brought you into this loop too.
Yeah.
Right. But it's an addictive loop to stay in. And so that's a hard thing to get out of too. It's not only will he punish you, but you're going to go through withdrawal from not being in this relationship because it's such an addictive cycle.
Yeah. And these guys often start out, particularly now, because nowadays there's so many scripts online about exactly what to say to a woman to make her fall in love with you. And some of these guys start out being your champion. Like they can start out
Yes.
saying, "You are special. There's no woman like you. You make me feel like it's vacation every day." And maybe you've never had a guy say those things to you before. And you think, this is the first time I've met someone who thinks like I'm that cool. And it's amazing. And these guys will help try, though they're going to support your career. They if you have any struggles like with a coworker, with your parents, he's on your side. He's going to go tell your coworker what for, and your parents shouldn't treat you that way. And you're like, this big strong guy is like, he's going to defend me. He thinks I'm great, and we have such passionate sex. Ah, and then he hurts you. And you think,
Yeah.
well, I maybe I shouldn't have said that, because this guy is my champion and we have passionate sex and it's so great. And then he hurts you and you think, well, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. And it does take a long time to see, because especially if the way he hurts you is verbal and not physical. One of the saddest things about abuse is that we always think, there's some great studies on this. We always think abuse is that one level above what we're experiencing. So there was a great study that was done that asked women whether they had ever been in an abusive relationship. One in three women said, yes, we've been in an abusive relationship. Then they did a special survey of the women who said they hadn't. And they said, okay, you say you haven't been in an abusive relationship. Here's 5 different behaviors. Could you tell me whether your current or past partner has ever exhibited one of these behaviors? And a full 60% of those women said, oh, yeah, my boyfriend or past boyfriend did that. And those behaviors were clear signs of abusive relationships. So the most important thing to understand is that if you're in a bad relationship, you're not going to see it as abusive. That's maybe what the wake up call is. And it's okay, because abusive is a really difficult word to use. So I like to talk about bad relationships, but I think maybe even something that's easier for us to talk about is relationships that are hurting us. And one of the ways you can tell it's hurting you, even if all he does is use his words, is your sleep starts to go, your self esteem goes into the toilet. You may be nervous and have social anxiety around people. You stop wanting to see your friends and family so much. Maybe you're not even allowed. your weight either goes up or goes down drastically. Um, you may have chronic health issues develop. And it goes on and on and on. But the important thing to know is that being in a bad relationship is not just psychologically difficult, it is poisoning your body slowly. It's increasing your chance of metabolic disease, cardiovascular disease. You'll get colds more often. This was a good one, key one for me. If you get a scrape or a bruise, it won't heal very fast. Your body just can't devote those resources to it. You end up being constantly braced. So you're chronically tight because you're just bracing for the next blow. And that can cause chronic pain because your muscles are so tight and tense all the time. Um, the important thing to understand is that if you are staying in this relationship because of the children or because of him, would you exchange 5 years of your life for that? If you die young because your body's under so much stress, would that be okay with you? And for some women, I want to emphasize it is because this man is the love of their life and they are willing to sacrifice. They're going to take that on. And that's okay too, because I think it's really unfair to tell women what to do. We all make choices and nobody else knows your situation. Only you do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And only you know what is worth it to you. What's worth what the you know what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking of um I was thinking of some advice that Terry Real gave when you and I both like Terry Real. And he works with a lot of men, and he was talking about what he calls something like normal
Normal
relational
marital
hatred.
hatred. Normal marital
Normal
hatred. Oh, I
marital,
love that one.
yes, normal marital hatred. And I will also say relational because not everybody's married, right? But
Yeah.
long-term relationships, it's normal that there's some amount of hate there sometimes, right? And so that's what we're kind of trying to figure out. What's that normal relational or marital hatred, and what is above and beyond that? But what he said about that is if you can find more good than there is bad, then that's telling you something about the relationship. That's good data. And so like you were saying there, the abuse could be there, but there could be other points. Maybe you are willing to go through that because Mr. Cuddle Bunny is present more often than Mr. Rageaholic, and he's great. And that is what you have to figure out for yourself. And that's part of this reckoning that happens at this age too. And there's just I think it's just because you hit that bandwidth wall of like of all of the things that we're told to be as women, to smile more and not take up space and, look pretty and be quiet, all of those things. And some of those things start to fall away and your eyes open up. And then you come to this reckoning point and you have to look at all of this data. And I think it helps to be really objective. And like you said, write things down, look at it as data, and ask yourself, which side is heavier for me?
Yeah. And there's another factor that's really important to mention, and in the good, it isn't good, but as if you have children or assets together, you've got to look at what could happen if you decide to leave him. Here's the thing. He doesn't have to be nice to you anymore. The minute you decide to leave him, if he doesn't try to get you back by being nice again, as far as he's concerned, you are the enemy and you must be destroyed. Now, I'm talking about the far end of this. Maybe there are some abusive men who don't think that way, but I think that always needs to be in your head. If he decides to destroy me completely, can I go through with that? What if he decides that if you decide to leave, he's going to take the kids? Because I will just tell you one sad thing, the courts cannot handle abuse. If he's hitting you, sadly, that's great because the courts might pay attention to that. But if it's emotional abuse or coercive control, the courts have a terrible history of dismissing that, considering it mutual abuse, or your partner may just be so good at lying, he'll say you're the abuser and they'll believe him. So I need you to understand that If you leave, chances are you will be in danger. Do you have the support? Do you have the resources? And if you don't, you need to build those up before you try to leave. So I know a number of women who have decided to stay in those relationships as long as the kids grow up because they know that if they tried to leave him, he would take the kids. Or even worse, maybe he doesn't take the kids, maybe you get joint custody. He then spends the rest of their lives filling those children's heads with toxic things about you. So you could lose your children emotionally, even if you don't lose custody. I want women to understand there are dangers. These are not normal men. Um, and if you believe that it will be unsafe for you to leave, and that if you stay, at least you have a house to live in, at least you have custody with your children, and you can protect your children from him, that's okay too. And in those situations, here's what I want you to do. I want you to build a life outside of your marriage. So, whatever freedom you have in that marriage, I want you to take advantage of it. If you're not working, I want you to get a job. You may have to hide it from him. You need money, and do not put that money in your joint bank account. Go get your own bank account. So, you need to be able to work. You need to have your own money. You also need emotional support because one of the problems with those relationships is one of the ways they get their hooks into you and control you is by slowly isolating you from everyone you love and everyone who loves you. So, like I said, they might, you have an argument with your parents. He might say, you don't need them. You're an adult. You don't have to listen to what they do. He might pressure you to stand up to your parents. So you end up poisoning and destroying those relationships. So you may be feeling very isolated and like he's the only emotional support you have. So no wonder you can't leave. So if that's the case, and you've decided you need to stay because that keeps you safe, your job is to use whatever freedom you have to get emotional support. And the nice thing about having a phone or the internet is even if you can't leave the house, even if he checks up on you where you went, you've got the internet. And one of the best things that ever happened to me was being told about the forums that are online. There are forums on domestic violence charity websites. There are forums on Reddit where you can read women and men discussing their experiences of abuse and how hard it is. And the support that comes through those forums is wonderful. But safety, as you can see, is a recurring thread in my book and it's a recurring thread in my work. If you do choose to use your phone to access support through a forum or the internet, you need to know some things. First of all, you need to know how to clear your cookies in your browser history every time you do. And I want you to, every time you go on, clear your cookies and browser history so he has no idea that you went to those forums. If you need to set up an account, which usually you do to write on the forum, make sure that it's not one you've ever used before in the past, a brand new one, and make sure there's never identifying details. In the domestic violence forums, there's often, it's really nice, they have moderators who go through, and if you accidentally put in anything that might make you personally identifiable, the moderators will go and take that personal information out, which is so helpful because sometimes you don't know how your guy could track that back to you. But in things like Reddit, there's not the moderators. So you need to be really careful if you're going to use the internet that there is no possible way he can find out. And I wouldn't mention to anyone either. If you are accessing support online, don't tell a friend that you're doing it. You need to keep a lot of this private. And I noticed one of the things as we've been talking, I noticed that what I seem to be saying a lot is lie to him, keep things from him. And one of the problem with us women, especially us women who pride ourselves on being good at relationships, is we want an honest relationship. We want to tell him how we feel. We feel like it's a betrayal to keep something from him. Like I can't imagine thinking about deliberately lying to the person I am in a relationship with. Just the ick factor. But sadly, these relationships are not normal relationships. These relationships, if you follow advice that's given for normal relationships, it will backfire on you. Because everybody else might tell you, you need to talk to him. When he's hurt you, go tell him how you feel. Ask him not to do it again. No, please don't do that because he'll use that to hurt you. So what I encourage women to think about is the fact that this relationship plays by completely different rules to normal relationships. That's why all that relationship advice out there hasn't worked for you. And one of the rules, sadly, that you need to break is the rule around honesty, because your safety is more important than your need to be honest with him. And I hate to say it, but I don't want women getting hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. And if the relationship isn't safe, you can't be behaving like the relationship is safe
Yeah.
because it's more important to take care of yourself than the relationship, which is not something that we're told often as women. So I want you to hear it. You are more important than the relationship. And if the relationship is hurting you, then you have to put your safety first.
Yeah. And that means keeping things from him. That may mean I tell a story. I love the story. Um, in a relationship I was in, my partner accused me of being verbally abusive. It's like, oh, I don't know what that is. I better look it up. And so I went online, I typed in verbal abuse because I didn't even know what it was back then. This has been ages ago. And the website that popped up belonged to the glorious and wonderful Patricia Evans. Patricia Evans is the author of The Verbally Abusive Relationship, which has woken up and saved, I cannot tell you how many people I know who've read that book and said it changed their life. Her website popped up, and I was reading about verbal abuse, and she includes a question. This was her old website. She included a question that said, why does he seem to be so happy after he's been verbally abusing me? He just seems like he's walking on air and doesn't have a care in the world. And that was the question that changed my life, because that
Mm.
was the question that made me realize that's not how I behave. That's how he behaves. It was such a mystery to me, Tara. I couldn't understand why, when we had those fights that are just gross, 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 I would be like hungover the next day.
Yeah.
I I was look, death warmed over the next day. He was happy. He
Yeah. He
felt
was in
good.
control.
He wanted, he was nice. It's like he'd had, a whole weekend holiday. And
Yeah.
that is, to me, that is the red flag. If
It's
with
the
your
Rolling Stones
partner
song, Under My Thumb.
under
You
my
know,
thumb,
it's
there
the
you
Rolling
go.
Stones song. I hate that song. Ugh, just disgusting to me. Ugh,
So
Mick
there you
Jagger.
go.
Anyway, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's so
So
happy because he feels like you're under his thumb.
yeah, he's the man now. He's the man. So anyway, so I knew I had to get this book, but I had a problem, which was that I wasn't able to get the book safely and have it be a secret. So I had somebody mail me the book, and I hid it under my bed. Like, hid it under
Hmm.
my mattress. And I want to say that I wouldn't have never kept anything from him, but I was actually told from a professional, you need to hide everything from him. And I think had I not been told by a professional to do that, I wouldn't have been capable of that level of deception. Because to buy a book about abuse and read it behind your partner's back and hide it under your mattress, that is not me. That's not even thought of doing anything like that. So I had permission. And I just want to say that any woman watching this right now, you have permission to go behind his back to find the resources you need to figure out what's going on. And you need to hide that search from him. You have permission. It's okay.
Well, in talking about resources, that brings us to a perfect place to share how people can find Why Is He Mean to Me to be able to learn more about what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tara. I love talking about this. I wish we could just go on forever. So I have created a quiz that women can take with just, I think it's got maybe 10 questions. And you go through the quiz and you get your answers, and then I will send you the results to find out whether your relationship is just, normal relationship stuff, whether it's getting kind of iffy, or whether it's crossed a line. And all you have to do to get that quiz is go to yourbrilliance.com/quiz. and take the quiz. And then if you want to go straight to the book because you know this is your situation and you want that support, you can go to yourbrilliance.com/mean, MEAN.
Okay. And you also have a list where people can get a daily email that is educating them about love. And I love reading my daily email. So where can people go to get that?
That is a great question because I think, oh, but see, yeah, so I think what might be best is just to go to yourbrilliance.com, and then on any of the pages on the right-hand side bar, you should be able to see a sign up link. But I need to make that easier.
Okay.
Thank you, Tara.
Maybe we could put
Taking the
that in the
quiz is
notes.
probably the best, easiest way to at least get in contact and find
Okay,
out what
that sounds great.
resources are there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm, quizzes are awesome. So who doesn't love a quiz? But it's not necessarily a quiz that goes to a fun place, but I think it's a very necessary place and something we all need to be thinking about with our relationships and, really get a good assessment of where yours is. So thank you so much, Amy. And thank you, Perry Posse, for listening and being here for this. You're an amazing audience, and we'll keep bringing you more survival tools for perimenopause.